Well, welcome everybody to a brief look at the work of Edvard Munch, a Norwegian painter who is more famous for his The Scream. But I'm going on the by and large the paintings that are in the exhibition that is currently on in the Courtauld Gallery in London. So it's a virtual tour of that using by and large the same paintings. And this is one of the first ones that they exhibit, which is one of his very earliest paintings, 1890. And it doesn't really look very much like a monk, does it? It's not what you'd expect. And yet only 2 years later, it was the same street that was his classic Nightmare shot. So he was obviously not very mentally stable at the time, because the later one, as it says there, is skeletal faces in strange hats. But that just showed he did have another side to him. It's very much the style of the Impressionists, I think. And they said in the thing like Pissarro and Seurat. So let's have a look at the next one. And this is on the same street just two years later. Something seems to have happened to him in the meantime, I think. They're what they call very expressive paintings. And it's part of his Frieze of Life series, which tackle the profound themes of human existence. And this is the Evening on Carl Johan. I mean, what do you think of that? What do you think it's getting at there? Do you think he's the guy on the right that you can't just to see the shadow of? But there's certainly a very weird look, that kind of skull-like painting, which he became very familiar. It became very much his style, didn't it? So this is the one of several that he did in this period. Though this is
imagine a lot of people looking like that in about 6 months' time with the recession and stuff.
Yeah. They look emaciated, don't they?
I love the political link there, Val. That's a really good one. I really like it. Yeah, I think it's very true. So these are for his earliest paintings. This one in 1884.
That's beautiful.
It is, isn't it? And it's completely different to the previous one, isn't it?
Yeah, it shows how people can change, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's really a nice picture, actually. Normal.
Kind of similar to the first one, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. There is a link there, and this is the one I was going to refer to. This is Inga on the beach. I think she is sitting on a rock there. A bit later,
she's older. Yeah.
Her, as they describe it, her white dress incandescent in the gloaming, the paint nubbed and thick as a Rembrandt. Behind her, the sea floats in a drift of lavender, mauve, and indigo. It captivates and is made to haunt. She looks deathly pale in her lunar dress, a form as distinct and primordial as the rocks. Well, you might see all that in it, but it's certainly a very distinctive painting, isn't it? And I love
the way you can see the shallowness of the water at the front there with the rocks underneath. That's really clever.
Yeah,
and the reflection. And are they fishermen or little people in the distance?
I can't see anywhere.
Oh, on top right hand on the.
You're quite right. Yes, I hadn't noticed that. It looks like it's been added later or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they're even the reflections of them are there. Yeah. Even unless they're dangling their feet.
This is one of an interesting article in. Does anybody else read the London Review of Books, which I think is the best magazine there is, personally? But in that, Celia Paul gives a view on some of these. Do you remember me talking about Celia Paul? She was one of Lucian Freud's models, and had a long affair with him and was badly treated by him. But anyway, she's got her views on it, which I think are themselves very interesting. She says, when aged 25, Munch painted his first great painting, Summer Night, Inga on the Beach, What set him apart was the ability to portray the strangeness of difference, other people of a gender not his own, of a world in which he doesn't belong, and he conveys that otherness with compassion. Inger is self-contained, she dwells on the mystery of herself. Munch is witness to the mystery, records it, as he does the extraterrestrial boulder she sits upon. That's Celia Paul's take on it, which I think is quite... A lot of her reflections about Munch are to do with gender, and because he had, I think he had 2 sisters or maybe 3 sisters, and was very much one of them. I think one of them died through TB, and he was very close to the other 2. So that's Inger on the beach. Well, this is a bit more like the Munch we know and love.
Yeah.
Melancholy.
Yes.
And this apparently is something to do with Oda Krogh, wife of the painter Christian Krogh, who was involved in a love triangle involving her husband and Jap Nielsen, a young journalist who was a friend of Munch's. So that's Nielsen in the front. His jealousy inspired this symbolic composition, which Munch painted, as he seems to have done with lots of his paintings, in several versions under various titles, both jealousy and in this one, melancholy. So he's sitting there looking pretty miserable, I think we'll agree, on the shore at Asgardstrand, contemplating. In the distance, you'll see the figure of a man and a woman. Not very clear.
She's in white.
She's in white, yeah. Christian and Oda Krogh. They're about to get on a boat. Oh, yes, they're on the pier, aren't they? They're on a little pier. And bound for an island where they will make love. Nielsen is painted in the manner of what was called the Pont-Aven school. Is anybody familiar with that? Jackie, you might, because it's the Brittany school of painting.
No, I'm not aware of it.
Which was inspired by Gauguin, with highly inflexible contours. So it's
interesting. Your eye is drawn to the figure of the woman, though, isn't it?
It is that little whiteness. The whiteness really stands out, doesn't it?
It's like painters sometimes put a tiny bit of red, just to lift the painting.
Well, he's obsessed with her, isn't he? So,
so we've got an imaginary but objective view of a melancholy man, and secondly, a blurred picture of the distant scene his mind's eye conjures up as a metaphor of the cause of his melancholy. Such double images demanding a transfer from our own eyes to the mid's eye of a foreground figure are not uncommon in Munch. So I think that, it does repay quite a lot of looking at that painting. It tells a lot about him.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? So this is beginning of his darker side, I think. Well, part of it, and because consumption and tuberculosis are amongst the frightening illnesses of the age, and a favourite motif for a lot of visual art. And most families, one way or another, were affected by it. So he experienced the disease twice, and on one occasion was struck down by it himself. And he says, one Christmas Eve, when 13 years old, I lie in my bed. The blood trickles from my mouth. The fever rages in my veins. Fear cries out deep within me. Not now. In just a moment, you will meet your maker and be sentenced for eternity. So that, to his own recollection, and also the horror and impressions from his mother's death in 1868, when he was just 5 years old, they shook him and his family. And then, particularly the death of his sister Sophie at the age of 15 in 1877, left a deep impression on him, and also the foundation for a number of his major works. Anyway, when it actually came out, it was exhibited in 1896. Some people tried to question the mental state of the artist. His simplification of form, choice of colours and intensity were extremely alien and incomprehensible to many at the time. So it was quite a step forward in painting. It was just not accepted. But I think it's really quite haunting, especially the figure on the right.
They look almost as if they're wearing death masks, two of them,
Yeah.
because the
Mm.
second one to the back looks.
Yes,
You look at the face; it looks like a bird's face.
It's
almost.
schematic, isn't it, rather than a face?
I can't work that one out. The
No.
reddish one. Is it a face? I just
I've enlarged it. It's got a hat on, but it
Oh,
looks,
right.
perhaps it's symbolic of masks
Wow.
of death or something.
And-
And the man with the moustache and the beard, I mean, that's presumably his skin. But when I first saw it, I thought he had a mask on.
Yeah, oh yes, I can see that. And look at his hands.
Yes.
I think that's fantastic bit of painting
Beautiful.
there. It really, that ringing of hands really comes across, doesn't it? It's quite impressive.
Yeah, he does fingers well.
Yeah.
It's not one I would want hanging up in my lounge. I would find it quite disturbing.
Jack, right.
Whilst it's not his last painting, it's the last painting of his in the exhibition.
Wow.
It's a self-portrait in 1909,
Gosh.
made after treatment for a breakdown following years of drunken paranoia. And it's described as an electrifying image. I think it is, isn't it? Look at that
I
colour.
think it's
Good.
wonderful.
All
1911.
broken
fantastic.
lines of pure colour darting like horizontal interference across a screen, vermilion, violet, cobalt and yellow. Yet Munch himself sits calmly among them, upright and composed in a neat three-piece suit, his force of mind and art unaltered.
He's quite versatile, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, that's really some painting, isn't it? After
I don't think his suit is calm.
No, it's weird, isn't it?
no, but he looks reasonably calm himself, doesn't he? But
I think it looks normal. It looks normal.
yes, he
Within
looks
that,
normal.
it's all
Yeah.
everything around him is going crazy, including
Yeah,
his
it's that kind of anger that you get in Van Gogh, isn't it?
Yes,
the anger of the paint.
Yes, there is an echo of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks very thick, the paint on his face. I don't know whether it is.
Yeah.
Munch had suffered a nervous breakdown. He was admitted to a clinic in Copenhagen. His inherent mental instability further unbalanced by heavy drinking. His doctor advised that he associate with poison-free women. I don't know what that means.
Free women. Goodness.
Virtuous types who look like like the nurses in their white dresses who looked after him. I don't know whether I've got this next, but there's a photograph in the exhibition. I'll look for one. No, I don't think it is. But there's a photograph in the exhibition catalogue of Munch being tended to by a smiling nurse, which I think we might come on to. This is a very unusual painting. It's called Women in Three Stages, painted in 1894, when he was 30. Their speculation is that the three women might represent the three stages of the life cycle: youth, maturity, and old age. Yet they appear to be the same age. They could be sisters. Do. A man stands isolated to the right of the canvas, his eyes cast down. He is boxed in by tall tree trunks. You can't see that very clearly in this. It's a very dark
man,
painting.
is it?
You can just about make out his face in it, can't you? He's so introspective as to be nearly a negation. He is separated from the three women to the left by a strange, bloody form, a red flower perhaps, or a vulva. Well, there you go. This is really getting down very strange territory, isn't it? This one.
Actually, yes, I see.
Very female, though.
Now, this is Celia Paul's take on this. And this is what she says about the painting we just seen. This painting makes me think of Bramwell Bronte's famous pillar portrait in the National Portrait Gallery, depicting his sisters Charlotte, Emily and Anne, with his own self-portrait in the group, obliterated, a ghostly absence that haunts the composition in the form of a tall column of paint.
That's interesting.
It's an interesting view, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to see that it is really similar to this one, but you can see the way her mind's working on that. It's an
Yeah.
interesting take on it anyway. That's all.
That sort of ghostly form.
Yes, and the ambiguous role of the male painter, I think, as well. But that's an interesting picture in itself. It's not particularly brilliant art, but it gives an impression of what they look like, isn't it? Which is something to hang on to. This is where he mentioned about the this is I think the painting, sorry, the photograph that they've got in the exhibition, which I found difficult to find, but it's a self-portrait, though I don't know how it's a self-portrait. He obviously didn't take it, at the breakfast table at Dr. Jacobson's clinic in 1908 to 1909.
The self-portrait, Bernard, is referring to the painting against the wall.
Oh, you're quite
It's
right.
at the
The
breakfast
self-portrait
table, yeah.
itself is at the breakfast table, isn't it? Yes. Yes, well spotted there. I was trying to look at what they said about it. Yeah, it tended to be. There's a photograph in the exhibition, and of Munch being tended to by a smiling nurse. He watches her tray-bearing advance with a hunted expression. Can't really see how she sees that in it, but there you go. I don't think he's at all certain that his prescription will be his cure. In response to his sanitized environment, he paints himself surrounded by bright, slashing horizontal granular lines, the color of war paint. His face is as defensive as a closed fist. That is in the painting. Anyway, so that's the. I think that must be the photograph that they're referring to. There might be another one, but that's the only one I could find.
I think it's that one.
Right.
Oh, I like that. That's nice.
This one is actually his final painting. It's not in the exhibition.
Oh.
It's from 1940 to 43. It's titled Self-Portrait, Between the Clock and the Bed, and was completed shortly before his death, aged 80. He stands in defiance between the gateposts of life and death. His vision is unwavering and uncompromising. He's on his guard. He doesn't want to be seen. He brings none of the empathy that it makes his portraits of women so psychologically revealing. He's more at home looking at women than he is looking at himself in the mirror. In this place, his paintings are a contrast. This is the interesting one. This is another from Celia Paul. His paintings are a contrast to Tracy Emin, whose exhibition, Tracy Emin and Edvard Munch, The Loneliness of the Soul, was shown last year at the Royal Academy. I didn't know that there was one jointly with them.
No, that would be.
Emin's paintings focus on her own emotions and her own bodily experiences. Munch's strength is to inhabit the lonely soul of another. I think that is an interesting take, actually. He was better at expressing other people's mental states than his own. This could be a self-portrait by the woman with the long flame red hair, because she inhabits the flesh of her body so intimately. The colour of her hair might suggest seduction, but I think it is her, this again Celia Paul talking, it is her inner life that is a true subject matter. It is a beautiful painting. I love the heavy scoring of the underdrawing left, visible to suggest risk and movement. She's cupping her breast familiarly, as she does when she's alone. She's in a world of her own. There is nothing voyeuristic in the sentiment, however. She was allowing herself to be looked at. She is at ease with the man who is observing her. Well, that's one take of it. Val, you've said, well, she's crossing her arms and turned sideways and looking down. So it's not necessarily the right interpretation.
I can't get she's at ease with the man, except that she's not bothered he's there.
Yeah. Not at ease. Maybe not bothered would be a better description than
not as
ease.
poetic.
Yeah. Anyway, on to this one. This is Marie Helene Holmboe, and it makes a bit more sense this time. Her future appears to be her own. She sits sideways on a Viridian chair. She turns to face the viewer. Her arms are crossed on the arm of the chair. Her face is alive with intelligence. Her blue eyes brim with humour and wit. Her eyebrows are raised and her mouth is open. She's expressing her own opinion without inhibition. I think you can see that in that one. I think that is a reasonable case. It's quite an optimistic one, isn't it? It doesn't seem to have the usual things on it. Anyway,
She doesn't look skeletal.
No, certainly not skeletal. But it's not in the exhibition. But I thought no summary of Munch without this would be possible. I think it's been overdone, this one, a bit. You know, it's on everything, isn't it? It has been described as the Mona Lisa of our age. It's just used for everything, and it's been stolen and attacked more than any other painting, apparently. Well, and there are several versions of it, so they can, which I always find confusing when artists do several versions of the same one. I want to know which is the real one. You know, which is the best. Doesn't work.
All the real one, Bernard.
So he's on his guard. This is the description of it. He's on his guard. He doesn't want to be seen. We're assuming that's Munch in the foreground. He brings none of the empathy that makes his portraits of women so psychologically revealing. He's more at home looking at women than looking at himself in the mirror.
It's like he's cutting off the sound of the waves. I don't know. I can't read it at all.
No.
It's bright sunset and then this lashing waves and sea, and people behind look calm, and he is totally threatened by them.
Yeah, angry, afraid, shutting the world out is how I look at it.
Yeah,
but there's something about
I
it.
want to get off.
There's something really gets to you about it, isn't there? There's no doubt about it. It's the inner. It's in theory, it's a painting of somebody standing on a bridge or whatever with some fence next to him, but it's much more than that. It's really looking into his soul and how he sees the world like that. It's probably there's never been a better painting of anxiety or fear or whatever else it's.
Horror more.
Horror is the right description as well.
That's a good
Yes.
Okay, thus endeth my thing on Munch.
I haven't seen those before.
No, I've not seen them before.
Well, I thought it was worth doing because, like with most of the people I look at, I know very little about them to begin with, and it's always a good way of finding out about them. It's the description of this one is that they say it includes a lot of Art Nouveau elements. He's allowed the foreground figure to become disturbed by the subjectivized flow of nature. The scream can be interpreted as expressing the agony of the obliteration of human personality by this unifying force. He wrote about another version of this one. He wrote it himself. Can only have been painted by a madman. He certainly had a horror of insanity, which had afflicted his sister Laura. And the fence still protects it from total absorption into subjective madness. Anyway, that's Klimt for you.
I wonder if Munch thought he'd ever become an emoji, because that facial horror is used so much. I use it on posts and stuff.
Yes, I do.
I think he's reduced to that.
He's interested in
Can I just say, Bernard, that even in the screen one, when you look in the distance, there's always 2-3 little boats having a nice quiet time.
Yeah,
they appear in nearly all the outdoor scenes. They're there.
Yes, they're true. That's true, isn't it? Just tiny little ones. It's almost I don't know. He's sort of.
I think one of the early ones said it looks as if it was added later, and it's almost like that's his signing off signature. When he's done the horror, then he just puts some little boats in.
I think also it's there for a sense of perspective. It gives you a perspective of space.
True. Yeah.
But that space between other people and him. He's that full figure in the front is so distant from everyone else.
Of those photographs, of those paintings, which one did you actually personally like the best?
I liked the white dress on the rocks. I liked that one.
Yes, I think I'd go for that one.
I'll just show that again if I can do it.
One of his sister on the bed for me.
Yes,
she's got one shoe on and one shoe off. It's like she's been massaging her foot after walking somewhere.
But in a way,
that's the only one.
You like the ones that are the least monk-like.
Yes.
I quite like that one as well, melancholy. I think
that's the one I like.
I think I'd have that on my wall. I think there's something very contemplative about it as well.
It's miserable.
So why has he painted those shapes? Because they have no sort of, just blend in, but they are nothing, are they? Sort of
Impressionist, yeah. They just melted, haven't they, into it? Yeah.
Yeah.
He hasn't done landscapes or seascapes, has he? They've always been people or boats.
Yeah, that's right. There's
it's not a nature.
Everyone's got somebody in it. You're quite right. I like the sky as well in that one.
Sunlight's just coming in at the top right, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the land there, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That's beautiful. Yeah.